we're back with another episode of the Lakers Fast Break podcast. It's Gerald Glasser, coming right back at you here from Lakers Fast Break, Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and Game Source. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our great shows. And if you can, please give us that 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe, follow, or do anything that you can to support us right here at the Lakers Fast Break, Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, Game Source, the great guys at LakerHolics.com. Go ahead and check out Jamie Sweet's 5 Things, and the number one Lakers blogger, as reported on by FeedSpot. I actually have proof online. I actually took a snapshot of it, and I'm going to send it to him. I'm going to email it to him. LakerTom, catch the number one Laker blogger today at LakerHolics.com. Plus Joe Soro, Ox1947, who's probably the number one Laker ball fan out there. So go ahead and check him out today. I was trying to bring you up as well, number one Lakers ball something. LakersBall.com. Please go ahead and check him out today, and all of his comments in the group chat today at LakersBall.com. Plus our good friends at the Hoopheads Podcast Network. And you can go ahead and follow all the great NBA shows that they have. And of course, please, if you're on YouTube, go ahead and below LakerTom, right there below LakerTom, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because we need all the subscribers we can get. And if you can do all that, because you'll get the latest notifications on when we go live, it is sincerely appreciated. Yes, right there below LakerTom. Below LakerTom indeed. Well, I thought today was going to be a relaxing day for me. I only had one podcast on the docket for today, an Inside Sports Fantasy Football. I was going to go ahead and record on the most overrated and underrated players out there for your fantasy draft. I thought, okay, it was not going to be too busy, nothing going on in the month of August. Everything was at a standstill. Then, lo and behold, Shams Charania and Adrian Wojnarowski decided to go ahead, and even though they don't do it in unison, they tweet in unison about LeBron James agreeing to a 2-year extension with the Los Angeles Lakers, worth initially and on the books as a $97.1 million extension. The last year of the contract is a player option. There is a 15% trade kicker. And if the salary cap goes up due to I guess if they renegotiate the TV contract and it goes up, well, I'll tell you what, the deal can be worth up to $111 million. And that's if it goes up in 23-24. So LeBron James is going to stay a Laker, at least on the books, for a little bit longer, unless he goes the way of Kevin Durant. Because, if he has another season like last season, he may want to go the way of Kevin Durant. But take the money when you can. And a very valuable deal indeed. But here today to talk about that, plus Pau Gasol's number getting retired in March 7th. And any quirks in the schedule, because the schedule was released out there for the Lakers for the upcoming season. So we're going to go ahead and talk about that. Plus maybe some final thoughts on the first couple episodes of Hulu's Legacy, the true story of the LA Lakers. All right, our chat is going live right now. We truly appreciate Johnny2K6 for being on the show. It's in the chat room right there for you. But here today to talk about what's going on with LeBron's extension. Good man indeed. You can find him shadowing everything going on at LakersBall.com. It is Joe Soro, a.k.a. Ox1947. I'm so glad that we are now appealing and appeasing the audience, because they requested you and LakerTom together. And it took LeBron James signing a 2-year extension to do that indeed.
Is it 97-1 or is it 111?
It's 97-1 right now. But when most likely they will renegotiate everything because of the TV deal. Because there's a TV deal on the horizon that they're going to go ahead and, as far as the league, work on in partnership with ESPN, ABC, and TNT. When those deals go into effect, of course, the salary cap goes up. And if that's the case, a deal like his gets ballooned up to, depending on how high it will go, up to a possible, $111 million. That's the most it could be as far as the value of it, if again the salary cap goes up accordingly.
Two things happened right now. One, LeBron made a commitment to the Lakers so that they can now say, okay, we're gonna be playing to win now. I would say this was pretty much the sealer in the Lakers pushing out the assets that need to get done to make a deal. Now, I've heard that the Nets want more than just their first round picks and a expiring contract of Russell Westbrook.
Wendy Gabriel,
So
maybe?
probably not. So I am going to say that there's likely going to be a 3-team deal here should it happen. And I would be in shock even more if there isn't something done. However, let's just say there isn't. This is the second part on why this happened, and it's the fact that LeBron's not going to get this kind of money anywhere else. I know he's LeBron James. I know he is a brand, probably the biggest brand of this era, but I just didn't see any team with salary cap space dropping $50 million for LeBron James this late in the game. Any team that would have had that kind of money available likely wouldn't be a title contending team, even if he came on board. So this was, going on my cynical side, I would say he did this deal because it was the best deal he can make financially. Yeah. But at the same time, he's also got a better chance at winning here as well, since he's got a prime number 2 or 1A already here, and with the chance of possibly getting improvements enough to be in a title contending team. So I don't think we should be surprised at any of this. I think things are going the way they need to go at this point. I thought maybe it would have happened later, but not really, too, because it's like, well, what are you going to wait another month for? What's really going to change? Get this thing done. Show the official commitment to the Lakers, and then now the ball, so to speak, is in the Lakers' hand. Rob, try to go get somebody or some people, whatever, to get this thing possibly to a title contender, hopefully this year.
Well, I'm hoping to as well, but I'm going to say it again before I bring on LakerTom. If this season goes as awry as it did the previous season, and you see that look on LeBron's face for like 20 games that he had, and I know you saw it and LakerTom saw it, the frustration could set in. Obviously it's, again, like what Kevin Durant did last year. Take the money and then work out the logistics later if it goes awry. And I'm hoping it doesn't go awry. I hope the Lakers will go ahead and do everything that they can to go ahead and make LeBron's next years or coming years as fruitful as possible. I'm hopeful of that. I'm hopeful LeBron, even at an older age, closing in on the big 4-0, will still be very healthy, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, just because he signed this extension now does not mean he's 100% going to stay. I understand there's a 15% trade kicker in there, but he can always go ahead and waive that if he wants to be traded to a specific team. It's a no trade clause, but it's not kind of a not of a no trade clause, that 15% trade kicker. It just allows him to go ahead and dictate his future, plus that player option in the final year. So I'm very happy for him, and he deserves it. There's no one that deserves it.
I don't think that happens. I just don't see a team.
I didn't say I don't think that happens, but we didn't think that would happen with Kevin Durant last year, did we?
It's different circumstances. I don't.
A different kind of player. You have to look at the history of LeBron James, Gerald. You're
Durant
ignoring the fact that he has never asked or demanded a trade. He's always taken free agency. Wait a minute. It's my turn. He's always taken free agency as the way to change teams. Okay? He's never asked for a trade the way that Kyrie has or KD has or all of these other guys. Instead, he has followed the rules. He's lived out his contracts and he's played them out. So any criticism of that seems to me to be.
I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying that in today's player-empowered NBA,
he is not today's player. He is not Kyrie Irving. He is not KD. He's just not that kind of guy. The other thing is, what's really obvious, and everybody who's writing about this, the signing, the extension, everybody knows LeBron wants to be in LA. That's a big reason for it. I mean, why do you change jobs? A better opportunity, more money, or to move somewhere where you want to live because you live somewhere where you don't want to work?
Well, the man is the man is a billionaire, and he's actually earned more than anyone else with this deal. Yeah. He's earned more than anybody else.
And I think it's really important that he, number one, committed to the Lakers again. You have to remember too, he signed a 4-year deal to start with. Mm-hmm. So it's not like, this is not like he hasn't said he's embraced. And then if there's any franchise, and we all know this, that wants to be known for coddling and taking care of their older superstars as making sure that they end their careers gracefully, the Los Angeles Lakers take the cake for that. They proved that with Kobe Bryant, because that's why. And LeBron James signed with the Lakers probably because of that, a good portion of it. And the next guy to sign with the Lakers is probably going to look at the way the Lakers treated LeBron James, and he's going to say, man, that's the kind of team I want to play for. Wouldn't you? This is great news for the Lakers because it takes away that unknown factor. That the Lakers now are probably going to give up the 2 picks for LeBron. That's a fact. But nobody who had really any common sense would have thought that was different, before. It all comes down to the package. You can't say you're not going to give a pick for this or that. You have to get the specifics and know exactly what the deal is. So there's deals to be made. I think the one thing that's really clear about this, though, is that now that LeBron has signed that extension, the one thing it does signal is Russell Westbrook is gone. Gone. There is no way they're bringing him back to camp and wasting 50% of what they consider to be 2 years in the window remaining for championships for LeBron James. They're not going to blow that. They need the 2 to 4 rotation players they can get in trades for Russell Westbrook and Talen Horton-Tucker. So this is good news. Unfortunately, it probably is not going to accelerate the trade situation because most of that is hung up on KD, and it doesn't look like that's going to change,
How does this differ, though, from the Kobe contract that was given so long ago, as far as the contract that I know
when Kobe got that
the lifetime
contract, he was not a top 5 player in the NBA still. That's the difference.
There you go.
Kobe's coming off of a major injury, that took a lot out of him. And it's funny. I complained at times about that contract, but I understood why the Buss family really felt that they wanted to do that. And I do think that was a factor for why LeBron came to the Lakers, and it probably will be a factor down the road, In the end, it'll cost us a few years at the end of a contract. There's no doubt about it, but God, I don't know. LeBron, how long will he play? I think he's going to improve his outside shooting this year. I think he's going to become
I think he has no choice.
Shooter. He's, you can see he's shooting 8 to 10 threes a game. He was 14th in the league in 3-point attempts last year.
Well, if he goes back to those years in Miami, because remember in Miami, he was very effective from 3.
Yeah.
And we'll just leave it at that. So.
Yeah. But no, so I think it's great news. And I think that it shows that we can see from everything that's happened that the good news for at least Lakers fans and the segment of Laker fans who believe in the same things that Jeannie Buss is believing in right now, which is that you take care of your superstars because that will attract people to come to work for you. That's a principle I've always felt as an entrepreneur that was a very important part of it. I'm sure Joe feels the same way as an entrepreneur, that, man, the people you hire are really that determines what kind of business you're going to have, what kind of character you're going to have, how hard they're going to work, how much they're going to care. And that's something that you want to build and cherish, and it's an important factor of it. Darwin Ham asked the question and basically said, hey, I don't want anybody here who doesn't want to be a Laker. Well, we know damn for sure that LeBron James wants to be a Laker now.
Well, I'm hoping that that's going to stay the case and remain the case throughout the entirety of his contract. Again, we'll see, with the way things are going, especially if he has another year like last year, all bets are off the table. But I'm assuming with the Lakers' commitment to him and his commitment to the Lakers that it will actually be better. And I'm hoping you're right, that the Russell Westbrook is, his contract, and for with him, he'll be gone by the tip off of the regular season, which we'll talk about as far as the schedule is concerned. Some games that you guys are really looking forward to coming up in the schedule season here on the show, but also here as well. Hopefully everything is going well indeed. We did a test earlier this week and it came off with flying colors. He is the madman from Toronto with a beer in hand. You got to go ahead and check him out today every time he's on the Lakers Fast Break. It is the Magic Man, Sean Grice. Sean, great to have you here, my friend. Your thoughts on the LeBron extension? You were very happy, giving the thumbs up earlier. Special shout out to the chat with Johnny2K6 and Jim Faison. Great comments so far. Your thoughts right now on the LeBron extension? You're on mute.
I was on mute. Thank you very much.
Yes, now you're good. We can hear you now.
100%. Doe a deer, a female deer.
Your sound needs to be turned up. We'll let you go ahead and work on that while you're fiddling around with that. But once again, it's the Lakers Fast Break. We're still trying. You sounded perfect on Facebook earlier this week. Oh, still trying. It is Gerald Glassford along with Joe Soro, Sean Grice, and LakerTom. Let me know when you're ready, Sean. You can just interject when you can. But it is LeBron signing a 2-year, $97.1 million extension. Want to go ahead and mention also as well that it can rise up to $111 million depending on, again, if a new TV deal signed and the salary cap in 23-24 goes up accordingly. That's the max amount I think it can go. Plus, he gets an option in his last year and a 15% trade kicker as well. So I tell you what, it's just very hopeful for the Lakers now that LeBron has committed to going ahead and becoming a part of the Lakers scene. Sean, do we have you here now?
Now, Gerald?
Can you? Yep. We got you. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, Gerald.
All right, go for it, my friend. Your thoughts on LeBron?
I'm very pleased about this news. We were just talking about it a couple. We were wondering whether this would fall, within a couple months, whether he wouldn't sign it at all. So,
hey, Sean, we can't see your video.
I think it's hurting its stream. I think it's hurting its stream having video and audio at the same time. So,
gotcha.
I think that's the problem right now. But as long as you can hear me,
yeah, go ahead, okay. Sean.
Yeah. So, I agree. I think this means that at some point in time, conclusion now that Russell Westbrook won't be a Laker. I think LeBron's willingness to sign an extension may be looked upon optically. Like LA, he doesn't want to leave LA. His businesses are in LA. Wants to win. Does anybody watch The Shop regularly?
No, I'm busy catching up on Hulu's Legacy.
Okay, what
the true story of the LA Lakers.
Yeah, right. So what Tom was saying, what Darvin, guys who don't want to be a Laker, LeBron on The Shop 6 weeks ago basically said he doesn't like players who don't have the willingness and the competitiveness and the willingness to win that he does. And it was a shot at Russell. It clearly was. It's what we talked about earlier. Like, usually LeBron does things very creatively through the media as far as how to motivate people, like Get Out incident with Kevin Love. This is clearly true, that he's basically saying Russ doesn't have the same desire to be. So to me, I love the move. Moving forward now, Rob has to include the 2 first round picks, and so this is just a sacrifice it means to have LeBron. I think it's a great decision on both parties.
It does sound like indeed, and I do apologize for all the technical difficulties. It just looks like the Restream and Sean Grice.
I think it's Joe's new haircut, man.
It might be Joe's new haircut, but I think it's just Restream. I think I'm going to have to go ahead, Sean, and let you know that we're going to work out something.
Looks great, Joe.
Facebook and StreamYard love Sean. Restream and YouTube does not like Sean. I just am thoroughly convinced on there. So we're going to have to work out our future conversations on StreamYard just for you. We're going to have to cater a special time allotment just for you, Sean, because you sounded fantastic earlier this week. In fact, I'm going to be posting that in the coming days to everyone out there on audio audiences out there. So once again, it is the 2-year extension for LeBron James. Any final thoughts on the 2-year extension right now, Joe? I mean, my gosh, a lot of people are talking about it. Again, we're just like saying, hey, everything's great, but we still got a team we have to build around him in order to compete this year in the Western Conference.
Well, it's the talk of the town because there's nothing else. I've never seen so much. I think I saw Woj and Shams post maybe 8 different types of 2-year extensions of LeBron James. I'm like, all right. Every time I looked at my phone while I was working, I'm like, okay, I get it. They signed the extension. But it's dead summer. It is the deadest summer I can remember, and nothing seems to be moving. I think what was it yesterday? Donovan Mitchell, they've re-engaged talks. I don't even know what that means.
They came back from vacation.
The phone rang.
Yeah. They're like, hey, is Donovan Mitchell still good? Good. Oh, well, I'll just check and see if he's good. Never mind. So the commitment by LeBron James is official. So now the Lakers need to be committed to supplying the team with players this coming year that are going to be a title contender. Is it realistic to say that? Sort of. Is it? I don't know.
And how can they do that, Joe?
Well,
Is there any way that they could do that?
I know that Woj just posted an hour ago, or I should say spoke on ESPN an hour ago, talking about they're willing to give up the 2 first-round picks for Kyrie, but they don't want to do it for Turner and Hield.
I wouldn't do it for Turner and Hield.
I'm going to go for broke. I'm going LakerTom crazy optimism here.
Okay.
How about if the Lakers figure out a way to get all 3?
I tried that several times, and it's great. The only problem is getting those other 2 teams to agree to it.
Well, we've nominated LakerTom.
I certified it was a good trade for all 3 teams, but
well, we saw that trade. Yeah, I don't think anybody on the internet, myself and Jamie Sweet, liked it. We actually we actually liked it for Lakers fans, but if you're a Nets fan, it was probably the worst thing you've ever seen.
There really are a couple of things that are really important also about the LeBron James extension. First is that because he took more than a 5% raise, he can't be traded for the first 6 months, which then goes past the trade deadline, which means he can't be traded in this season at all. So we've got a couple of guys on Lakerholics.com that's going to mean that they don't have anything to talk about for the next year because everything they talk about is targeted toward trading LeBron James. The second thing is that now LeBron and AD's contracts align perfectly. We have them, each of them guaranteed for 2 more years, and then they both have an option to opt out in the final year of their contracts. So that's an interesting factor because
if I could interject.
Go ahead, Sean.
The salary cap goes up, Tom. There's he gets a small. It goes up to what was it? 112 million. It goes up. I believe.
I think it's at 112 now. I think it could go up to 120.
I meant
it could even go up higher depending on the next contract.
I meant his specific deal. The two not to pay bump with that.
Well, right now, again, at the 2-year extension, it goes 97.1.
Right.
But if a new TV deal is signed, it can go up to 111. That's the maximum it could go to based on the salary.
But what it does do is there's not enough. They're projecting that there was going to be like $20 million of cap space available. And now it looks like they're probably not going to have any cap space available when it really comes down to it, because they've got LeBron and AD now both plugged in for 2 more years. So that means that there's not going to, what it comes down to is that's why you trade for somebody in this situation, because you want the bird rights. You got to be able to get the bird rights, then you can go way over the cap to sign them if you're willing to pay the luxury tax. You get Kyrie, you trade for Kyrie. I mean, are we going to give up 2 first-round picks and maybe more for a guy that you're going to not sign a long-term extension for? Probably not. Same thing with Miles Turner. If they go for the Pacers trade, Turner's got to sign an extension. The same thing with Kyrie. You're not gonna give away 2 picks for a 1-year rental of anybody. So when I think about 3 years of Kyrie after this, and 3 years of Turner, and 3 years of Hield, we got 2 years on Hield. Man, I like the stability of going big. You know, it fits what Darvin Ham wants to do, and it also I think unleashes. No matter how you argue it, Kyrie's going to take touches away from LeBron and AD. He's going to take the ball away from LeBron a lot, and Turner and Hield won't do that. Turner will allow them to play down a position, so they've got size advantages, and Hield will allow them not to be double teamed all the time. I think there's a lot to say for and I also think they might be able to get it for a 1 pick and a swap instead of 2 picks, you know. So
that would be preferable.
There's something to be. There's a lot to be said about both of those deals. And you know what's even odder? I think that the Lakers might even be interested in the Julius Randle deal. There's something about all of this talk that I keep hearing about. You know, we've got other offers that are out there besides the Pacers and the Nets. You know, there are other teams, and when Donovan Mitchell goes down and KD goes down, maybe a lot of different things will happen. So but Donovan Mitchell and KD going down, what does that do? I mean, what does that change really? What it changes is the Knicks situation, because if they got Donovan Mitchell, they want to get rid of Julius Randle. That means they would love to eat Russell Westbrook's contract.
Yeah, that's a bad deal for the Lakers.
They need to do that, and so it's kind of scary to think that the Lakers are saying that, yeah, we got this other deal, man. You know, I love Julius and I'd love to rooting for him, but man, I don't see the fit as good as even Kyrie, you know, being a point guard and so forth. And yeah,
he would have to come off the bench.
I might like Utah. I might like the Utah deal better than the Knicks.
He would work. He would work. He just would have to come off the bench.
Right. And I don't think he wants to do that coming off an All-Star season 2 seasons ago.
I mean, at that point, you have to do what's best for the team. And if you're subtracting Westbrook for Randall, you're still winning in the end if that's the last option.
In the end, if I was forced to do it, I would probably do that over, you know. He's only 23. He's only making 23 million a year. You can move that a lot easier than you can move 47 million. You know, you throw a couple of second-round picks in, you can probably move a contract like that.
It's difficult for the Knicks to find a specific Julius Randle because he only fits in specific. He's not a versatile forward that you can throw out like Joe. He's a sixth man. He can come off the bench and give you 50, 6 to 10 rebounds. That's his game. I think it's time to find a fit for Julius Randle in the NBA.
And the other thing is, you also factor in the AD may miss games. Well, you start Julius when he's out. You just can't play those guys together.
Unless you play 80 at the 5, and then you're undersized at the 4 and the 5,
and you're not really having oversized. Yeah, you're not, and you're clogging the lane. You don't really have anybody that can stretch the offense. But the thing is, there is no loss worse than. Well, there's no. It's not a loss as long as it means you're jettisoning Westbrook.
Well, there's something to be said for taking that 47 million and breaking it into 2 or 3 or 4 pieces, because when you break it into those smaller pieces, you have a much better chance of moving those pieces around and trading them. Otherwise, with Russ, you're left with a dump.
I think another move like that, if you're being compelled to give up those 2 first-round picks, you have to get something in that, like you have to get a camera.
You need 2 starters back at least.
You can't just get a Bojan Bogdanovic, a Patrick Beverly, a Julie. You need to find value.
You need 4 of them if you're going to get those kind of guys.
As well, you need value as well as versatility. If you're giving up 2 first-round picks, it can't just be a sweetheart deal for whomever the other 2 teams are.
Yeah, you got to have players who are legitimate rotation players, which for the Lakers means if they trade for Kyrie, they're going to get 2 players back. They're going to give up 2 players. They give up Taylor Horton Tucker and Westbrook, and they get back, Harrison and Kyrie. 2 trade, and that works because they're both really good, And Kyrie is the wild card that really gives you a 3rd superstar who really could be a superstar, The other trade, when you go to the Pacers route, you can probably end up trading Taylor Horton Tucker and Russell Westbrook for 4 players, because you can probably get 3 players. You can probably get Turner, Hield, and McConnell from the Pacers, and then you could probably swap THT for Beverly to get up 4 players. So you get 4 players in that case for those 2 players are worth $57 million. Both of those give you not a favorites role, but maybe let's say, you might be in the top 4 teams. If you hit Turner, you might be in the top 8 teams in the league, presuming that Len and AD are healthy. And you got to remember, we've always said, give us LeBron, give us a healthy on an AD and a good roster, and we proved it. Kyrie sort of says the Lakers don't believe that, or they have doubts about it.
It's funny because I think that whatever it is, the virus whatever it is that LaShawn has with his stream, LakerTom caught there in that last few minutes. Now it seems to be you're up and running. But Joe, any last thoughts on this before we go ahead and hit up Pau Gasol and the rest of the show?
I think we've gone over everything at this point. The next phase is going to be whether they're going to acquire someone for Westbrook. If we don't see something in the next month, it's going to be bad news. And I'm hoping the Lakers are ready to go a different route should they go into the season without making a transaction for better players. I'm crossing my fingers. I know it's not going to mean much during the year, and likely we won't be title contenders. but we can't start the season with Westbrook, whether he's traded or not.
Well, I think that's agreed upon by all parties concerned. Now,
I just don't think they're going to do it. I think they're going to take another chance with it.
They have a backup deal already laid out with somebody, I'm sure. I
hope so.
That's what
I certainly hope
talking
so.
About.
But
that's
it better not be
Pelinka
for
really
Randall.
meant when he said he had other options. He has a deal that he thinks is better than keeping Russ.
I'm just going to say Randall is not going to move the needle at all for you this season if you trade for him. Simple as that.
He could if he plays like he did 2 years ago off the bench.
But if you could break $57 million up into 3 contracts and then at the trade deadline move those contracts.
We'll see if that.
I mean, Jamie Sweet's always pushed the fact that in-season adjustments are going to be something that, because of the bad situation we're in, we may have to live with. It's probably true.
Well, because of the fact that this was a bad summer for a lot of teams as far as transactions concerned, not the free agent market was almost was pretty dry. I have a feeling that the February trade deadline is going to be active simply because a lot of teams are going to know exactly where they stand. Plus, also a lot of teams are going to be looking for players and making trades for players that they couldn't make over the course of this summer. I just think it's going to be very active February, and if
it's better every year. It's better every year.
Well,
every year there's more action.
We're all rooting for you because as Jamie said, he doesn't want to see you sad 3 years in a row at the trade deadline special. So I know that's the case.
Really, I mean, but it's the Lakers haven't made any trades, but there have been more trades. There have been more signings of free agents. There have been more buyout candidates than ever before. Every season, the off-season stuff like this gets to be bigger and bigger and bigger. It's a big part of the business part of the NBA has become almost as exciting for fans as the games themselves, because it goes on all year long and the games only last a short time.
Well, one of those games coming up in March of next year is a tribute to Pau Gasol because his number is being put into the rafters. It looks like I was just going to ask Joe, but it looks like that right there, as far as an answer, I think he's very happy about it. I know some social media reaction online was kind of mixed. Some were like really supportive of it, and also because of the fact that he's been so supportive of Kobe Bryant's family after the passing of Kobe Bryant and Gigi Bryant. And I just think as far as him as a player, he's a Hall of Famer. I think there's no doubt he's going to be, have his number raised with Memphis. That's a no-brainer right there. The Lakers, his time was limited, so we weren't sure if that was going to happen, but it is going to happen.
Hall of Fame is international too. It's not just limited to the NBA.
Well, of course, what he's done for his country is just, amazing. What him and his brother did for his country is amazing, and I think that both Gasols will actually be their numbers will be put in the rafters for the Memphis Grizzlies by the time that's done. But it is going Powell going up in the rafters for the Lakers. So your thoughts, LakerTom, and I'll hit it to the other two guys real quick.
It's exactly the kind of player that you'd want to have on your team. I don't care whether you're Jerry Buss and you're building a basketball team or whether you're a guy at a gym looking around the gym and you see a bunch of guys and you're looking for guys that you want to play with, that are fun to play with, that play smart basketball, that play unselfish basketball. Pau Gasol was just a perfect, maybe the best trade that the Lakers, maybe after the Kobe Bryant trade, obviously, maybe one of the best trades the Lakers ever made was getting a Gasol. And that totally transformed the second half of Kobe's career, in my opinion. So he deserves to have that number retired, and he'll always be a Laker, and I'll never forget what he's done for the Bryant family, and I'm sure Kobe appreciates that every day that he looks down upon the crowd and sees how well that Pau takes care of his wife and those kids.
It's so funny because you said he'll always be a Laker. It's funny because after what Richard Jefferson's comments the other day in regards to LeBron James, maybe this extension will allow him to become a Laker, although I consider him a Laker.
What's Richard got that's in the same category as LeBron in any category?
He's got a ring too, though. But that's just because of LeBron. But Joe, your thoughts on
earning the ring and being a recipient?
LeBron is a title away from being a Laker legend. When you're I'd say when you're a multi-championship player on the Lakers. I mean, Gail Goodrich, Jerry West, they're single title guys, and they've got their number in the rafters. The Pau Gasol thing, in my opinion, is the greatest trade I've ever witnessed as a Laker, and I say that because the Kobe Bryant trade wasn't as impactful at the time. Yeah, it became the greatest trade of the last 30 years, but we didn't know that. We didn't know that at the time. Gasol changed the entire landscape of the Lakers, Kobe's career, and the league in that trade. And for me, it's one of those identifying moments of the last 22 years, if not the identifying moment. I knew exactly where I was when it happened. I remember I got a text message. I used to have the Razor Motorola phone.
I remember that well.
And I got the text. I was driving to LA. I got the text, and my buddy Chris says, "Wow, the Lakers, I'm paraphrasing. They got a steal," he said. And right away, I'm like trying to get onto my phone. Luckily, I was in traffic, so I wasn't worried about crashing.
You weren't going anywhere anyways.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm sitting there, and I'm trying to get to where what they traded, because again, at the time I was in the car. I didn't have Sirius radio. It was like I didn't know what to do. So I finally get to something. I don't remember what it was, but I get to something. I'm looking for Bynum's name. I'm looking for Lamar Odom's name. I'm looking for something where I'm like, yeah, I can see that. And I initially thought it was for Jason Kidd. Then all of a sudden I find out Kwame, the rights to Marc Gasol. At the time, I didn't know if that was good or bad. Javaris Crittenton, and they signed Aaron McKee, which was hilarious. I'm like, Aaron McKee? They signed Aaron McKee, paid him money, and then traded him. And I'm like, who the hell did we get for this? And Pau Gasol, I mean, I was in the car. If anybody was watching, I was like, is this
you should
true?
hear Mike. Wait till our story, Joe. Wait till you hear my car story about this.
I'll finish up and we'll go right at you. And I was so excited. I just couldn't wait to get home. It took me like another 2.5 hours because I still needed to go do something in LA and then drive back. Actually, it was more than 2.5. I think it was like 4. And I could not. I remember calling my buddy right after I said, dude, we just got a player that does exactly everything Kwame Brown doesn't do. I mean, he makes layups. He knows how to run an offense. He doesn't fumble the ball. Like everything Kwame Brown was doing, this guy does. And I go, this is going to be, and of course, there were a lot of expletives when I called him to tell him. He didn't believe me for like the first 20 seconds. I'm like, dude, we got Pau Gasol or so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so. And all of a sudden, he's just like, shut the F up. Shut the F up. I'm like, you couldn't believe it. I'm like, dude, how many times are you going to tell me that? I go, dude, it's serious. It happened. So get home, and I'm like, man, I can't wait for that Jersey game. At the time, the New Jersey Nets. And I mean, it was very, very, I was very excited. And I knew, man, if as soon as Bynum got hurt, I said, if Bynum gets back, this thing's going to be lit. And it was, even without Bynum. Unfortunately, we couldn't finish it off, but boy, those 3 years were just amazing.
My big shout out to Alan. Thank you so much for the kind words about Pop Culture Cosmos. Truly appreciate it. And in regards to LeBron, yeah, maybe some money left on the table doing a James Harden type deal might have been maybe more beneficial for the Lakers long term. But in that 23-24 season, if the salary cap does go up due to the TV deal, hopefully that will go ahead and maybe still allow us to go ahead and sign some players. Plus, of course, Russell Westbrook's money comes off the table next summer as well. So I'm hoping the Lakers still, even though that they have, so much money invested in LeBron in the coming years, that hopefully they will still be able to get enough players to provide a supporting cast. Because as everyone knows that watches this show, that listens to this show, the Lakers supporting cast, it's something that needs to be improved dramatically. But before we go ahead and touch on the schedule and some final thoughts on Legacy, the first 2 episodes before we head on out, thanks again so much, Petting My Cat. Jim, Alan, you've been great so far in the chat. Everybody that's been in the chat, you've been tremendous. Sean, you have a car memory before we go ahead and head over to the schedule?
Yes, Gerald. Joe had a car experience with the Pau Gasol trade. And by the way, there's a Toronto connection with the Pau. It's February 1st, 2008. That's a Friday. The Lakers playing the Raptors. They dust them 121-101. The word around, the rumorville in the NBA is that Pau Gasol is actually, he's not going to the Lakers. The Bulls have a trade package, something that blew Memphis away, obviously. And from what throughout the weeks before the trade, it was that Pau was going to Chicago. So, sports radio station, and I've just come home from work. It's like noon, and they say, and breaking news: the Los Angeles Lakers power forward Pau Gasol from the Memphis Grizzlies, and I almost had an experience. I remember Smoke on the Water was playing by Deep Purple when I changed to believe what I heard, and I needed to hear it again, and still in shock, and I don't want to get into an accident similar to what happened to Joe Gardner Expressway, and I'm the only idiot jumping up and down at Pau Gasol's a Laker, and somebody pulls me, not a crazy person, and make sure I'm okay. I tell him, yes, I'm fine. I'm a sports fan. He goes, okay. He drives off. I collect my thoughts, turn on TV, and yeah, sure enough, Pau Gasol's a Laker. And at that time, the Lakers were in a dog fight with teams in the Western Conference that year. I mean, the Lakers finished 57 and acquired Pau Gasol. They only lost 7 games the rest of the year, and win 65 games the following year, where he won his first title, and he goes on to win a second title. Other than Manu Ginobili and Tim Duncan, Pau Gasol has, as far as games, over 150 games played with a team. That's the Laker. He made everybody around him better. Everybody. I remember, we'd be up by, 20. DJ Benga was basically getting minute runs in the fourth quarter. I mean, it was truly astounding to see basketball. I mean, those two played, and to have is well deserved. I will say this: I think mid-season trades go for Lakers. I mean, I put it up there with the Michael when that was the only trade, by the way, that the Spurs made with the Lakers again, and probably will never after that one. But to me, it's one season trade, and it's Michael's that are the greatest two in Lakers history. The Bullets, 2 each, and I'm just happy for Pau that flowers that he deserves, and it's going to be emotional. His number beside his friend,
Absolutely, indeed. Once again, Pau Gasol's number will be raised to the rafters as a Laker, immortalized on March the 7th. Before we hit the schedule, any last thoughts, Joe?
Yes. What's cool is if they do put the jersey between Kobe's two jerseys,
they have to. They have to.
They're 8. They're in sequence. 8.
Yes, they are.
16, 24.
24. There you go. There you go, indeed. Once again, it is the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate you being part of the program. You guys in the chat, Petting My Cat, Joe, Johnny, Alan, everybody, John, just guys have all been tremendous in the chat room. Jim, thank you so much for being a part of what we do here at the Lakers Fast Break. But before we head on out, the schedule has been released. I took a quick glance over it today. I'm going to go into more detail in the coming days and look over it and look to see if there's anything out of the norm. And it seemed like it was a pretty well distributed schedule for the most part. The road trips weren't super tough as far as having some teams that are not expected to do well mixed in, obviously, with the games against the teams they are expected to do well. I noticed one thing as far as for me that was kind of a quirk, and I wanted to point that out. In November 20 to 26, you've got 4 games, but 3 of those are against the Spurs, and 2 of them back-to-back are in San Antonio. And I know this is something that the NBA is kind of like doing for travel reasons and things of that nature. They started dabbling with this a little bit. So people are not thrown off. Just want to let you know on the 25th and 26th, San Antonio, they will be playing in San Antonio on a back-to-back basis. So outside of that, it does seem to be pretty evenly distributed. I know the Lakers, everybody was in an uproar that they have, first off, they go up to Golden State, as Joe had mentioned, and then they come back for a home game against the Clippers back-to-back. I know that's obviously a tough way to start the schedule, but overall, I think it looks pretty distributed. Guys, is there anything, I'll start with you first, LakerTom, is there anything on the schedule that you saw that pokes out at you on interest? Of course, the Christmas Day game against Luka as well.
Right. Yeah, I think the first time we play the Nets on November 13th, that was going to be an interesting game, depending on who we traded for. December 2nd, we got the Bucks. That's going to be a big test. The Celtics on December 13th. And then, there's at some point in time, LeBron is going to be breaking Kareem's record or getting close to it. So there's going to be a game there that's going to be historic. And then, we play Golden State on March 5th. That should be a test to see what kind of team we've got by March. So, yeah, it's an interesting schedule. And what's really pretty amazing is that it was like for a year or two that the East all of a sudden seemed to be rising up, and now the West has just gotten brutal. I mean, there's so much competition in the West that there's probably 4 or 5 teams in the West that you could say are better than the teams that won the last 2 championships.
Joe, any revenge games against Oklahoma City you're looking forward to, or is there anything else on the schedule?
I don't think you can have revenge when you're a 33-win team.
Well, they did lose 2 very embarrassing losses.
If there's any revenge games, it's got to be against the Clippers. No one cares about Oklahoma City. Heck, we used to always lose. We used to always lose to the Bobcats back when we were really good. I could not figure out what the hell that team would do to beat us, and they're actually
what happened to the Bobcats? They become something else.
They turned into bugs.
The Hornets.
The Hornets.
Oh, they became the Hornets.
They turned into a bug. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was trying to be funny, but that didn't work.
No, it's funny, Joe.
But here, it's a funny stat. Not that we're talking about that era. So in 2009, after the Lakers beat the Magic in the finals, they had either had a winning record against every team they played or tied except the Bobcats that year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the only thing is you and I had issues again with the way they handled those two games against Oklahoma City, having those large leads.
Well, that was that is my point with the issue with Russell Westbrook. They actually were not playing bad. I'm not saying they were playing really good either, but they weren't playing that bad the first few weeks. And those two games are what slit the throat of the Lakers, and they couldn't stop the bleeding after that because they just did not have the right guy kind of guiding them while AD was sort of there, and then LeBron was out the beginning of the year. You didn't have that third guy that was supposed to be your third star kind of picking up the slack. And when everybody came together, it's like, it got worse.
Sean, any games on the schedule that are really interesting that poke out to you?
Well, it's funny that Tom mentioned the scoring record. At the tail end of the year, the Lakers played the Bulls twice. It wouldn't. It wouldn't surprise me if around there. And
that's a home and home.
Yeah, it's a home and home. That's another quirk that they're trying again. That a lot of teams have this. They have home and home away. It's like what Gerald was saying. They're trying these quirky things on the schedule. One thing I will say, Gerald, not in terms of games, but in terms of pace, looks as though the Lakers don't have any back-to-back for the first couple, the beginning of the middle of November, where that really starts. Have 12 in the entire season, but 10 are before the All-Star break. 10. So if they can tread water with those back, hopefully our health, which is the number one factor, is just health.
Yeah.
And if that holds up, the Lakers only have 2 back in the net in the last 6 weeks. So to me, it feels as though strong, which I think is important. Like Tom was saying, in this boat race we're calling the West, and they, without a doubt, 33 wins last year, they need to finish strong. Opportunity to try and win a championship. It's not necessarily what when you're playing well. It's are you peaking too early like the Yankees and Cardinals, or do you want to play with 30 games left? You're playing the 800 level, and you're ready to go.
Like the Dodgers.
Because that's what it's going to take. Like the Dodgers.
There you go, Joe. Sorry, Tom.
Well, if they would have spent the money that the Dodgers spent, which they should have, but unfortunately, I don't run the Yankees.
The Dodgers paid less than half of what Corey Seager got to get Freeman. They actually did not spend as much. They didn't make any deadline trades because they didn't want to give up any prospects.
No,
should we call LakerTom?
Their total salary is like $167 million greater than the Yankees.
Should we call LakerTom Steinbrenner? How about that?
No, because
there
which
used
one?
To be a Yankee Tom, but I just
the son or Pops. If it's Pops, no, the son.
We like yes, LakerTom better. Okay.
One of these is from,
Yankees are not losing because of not signing players. They're losing because they're the Yankees.
Go ahead, Sean, and then we'll go ahead and send it on out here in a second.
Yeah, one of the greatest
injuries.
Billy Bean once said that there are rich teams and there are poor teams. Then there's 50 feet of crap. Here's what the Oakland A's salary cap is. So I don't think Tom's in any position to, like Billy said, the greatest quote ever in baseball. It's an unfair game. Baseball is.
Yes, baseball is an unfair game indeed. But before
it's
we
a lot
head
of
on
money
out,
to play for a remote chance that you win a championship because because you play so few games at the end. All you have to do is a hot pitcher and it's over.
Yes. Well, before we head on, before we head on out, I want to go ahead and touch on again. If you haven't seen it already, Hulu has the docuseries already started this week. The first 2 episodes of Legacy, the true story of the LA Lakers. And I did speak to Hulu PR today, and we're trying to see if we can still arrange an interview with one of the producers behind the scenes. So I did speak to Hulu PR today. So I'm hopeful they got my request. They've acknowledged my request, and they've gone back and forth. And they also spoke to the producer himself. So
we'll call you. Don't call us.
Yeah, something like that. But hey, it's just great to see something that when you go ahead and get the email from anyone that works at Disney, it's kind of a cool thing indeed. But before we head on out, I've seen the first 2 episodes. All I can say is right now, again, the archival footage for me is just the best part of this. I don't know how many people are going to gravitate towards this docuseries because, again, this is the third. In these first 2 episodes, it's the third retelling of the same period of time that was also covered in Winning Time, and also as well the Magic doc that came out earlier this year on Apple TV Plus, which we've also covered on the show, and you can catch in the archives. So if you stick through it, it's going to go and head through the Kobe Shaq era and into the Bubble Championship, and hopefully we'll also go into detail in regards to the Buss family drama that happened in last decade. So hopefully we'll be able to go ahead and get more knowledge on that. That's the part I really want to go ahead and make sure that that's covered, is that part, that time period, because so much of it was speculation and reports. So I'm hoping that we will be able to go ahead and see something more definitive on that front. Right now, the first 2 episodes, again, for me, it's all about the archival footage. It's not really telling me anything I need to know or haven't known already or haven't found out already, but it does cover the first 2 episodes up to their first 3 championships in the 1980s. Again, the archival footage from all the different aspects, from early sports shows to what they were covering at CBS to the local stations down there. Didn't get KHJ. And hopefully I can get someone on to go ahead and ask why they couldn't get KHJ coverage, or if they did, it wasn't very pronounced. I would have loved some KHJ as Jamie and I were alluding to with the old theme song and all that. But again, it was still very much brought to light. It did cover a lot of the on-court action, and of course also as well the archival footage with the interviews with Dr. Buss. Obviously was very informational as well. So we'll see what happens, but Joe, are you going to catch it? Are you going to catch the series at all? Is there anything in particular you're going to go ahead and
I saw the first episode last night. I went through halfway through the second one and started falling asleep.
I love that archival footage, though. I love the footage.
Yeah, we keep talking about this, about dual shows or movies coming out at the same time. I think their irritation with Winning Time was it was ahead of what they were doing, because this obviously didn't get done after Winning Time came out, right? This was done a while ago, right? Am I wrong?
Yeah,
or right?
To put something like this together, just to find all the archival footage must have taken a year at least.
Which only adds to more of the, I don't know what word to use for Jeannie and the crew. It just adds to the more of the assness of their whole aura at this moment.
I think you mean mustiness, Joe.
Mustiness. Yeah, that's fine. I like assness because it sounds funny. It's just I don't know what Gerald's not laughing, so I shouldn't have said it. I'm watching the first episode and I'm like, okay, all right, okay. How is this different than the other show? Except you just have the real people here.
Yeah.
So if
they didn't cover the Jerry Buss, actually, there were different spots that they picked as far as what they wanted to cover, as opposed to what Winning Time wanted to cover. I think that's also something
they didn't show. Okay, so they got angry about the other show, but it turns out that it's pretty much the damn same one. I don't know. That's what I got out of it, but I gotta watch the whole thing to really get a good assessment on it. And we're not the right people to probably ask anyways. We know everything about this team. We know all about that era now, especially now. And I'm going to be very interested in seeing how the Jerry West thing kind of turns out, because if it comes anywhere near what winning time is, I'm going to laugh even harder. And just for the record, I actually like Jerry West more because of winning time, and I already love Jerry West. So if Jerry's listening, anyone who cares about winning and the fact that he knew he wasn't the right coach, these are the things that true leaders do. That's my interpretation of it. And I got a little bit of that in the first episode and a half. And I'm like, how is this any different than, okay, so Jerry might not have been in his tighty whities in a fetal position. Okay, they may have embellished that, but even if somebody had done that with me, even though I don't wear tighty whities and someone said I did, I think that would be kind of funny.
I just don't want to get a picture of you in your tighty whities.
That's the point. The point is it would be funny, even though I don't wear that stuff. So I don't know what I think it's, sometimes you got to laugh at yourself.
Trying to block out any mental picture of that. Just trying to do that.
So anyways, but I think the only thing left was, I guess the only thing left is watching the whole series and then being able to make a good assessment on that. Like Jerry West more than when he was bashing J.J. Redick. J.J. Redick ruffled the feathers of Jerry West, and Jerry West completely forgot about winning time. So good job, J.J. Good job getting his mind somewhere else.
LakerTom, before we head on out, any thoughts on Legacy? Are you going to catch it while you're heading out on?
Well, it's kind of funny. I was really eager to watch Winning Time, and I've sort of resisted turning on the Hulu version of it.
What's the third time we've seen the same story within less than 6 months?
It's
at least this
the
part
archival.
Of it.
It's. I guess it comes down to the difference between being presented with a documentary and being presented with an entertainment situation. Winning Time was an entertaining show. It was put together with some pizzazz, and I liked the over the top attitude that it presented and so forth. And I felt exactly the same way about Jerry West, whom I patterned my game as a basketball player with as a young kid, and used to shoot hundreds of jump shots watching my shadow just to make sure I looked like Jerry West.
Are you over him going to the Clippers, Tom?
He's a Clipper because of the Lakers.
It all started with Phil. That whole situation with Phil and Jerry was one of the things that, like Kobe and Shaq, you wish that somehow they managed to figure out that, hey, we could do a lot more together than we can separately, and you end up with a feud, and so, I'm a Laker fan. I'll support the Lakers against that. And I also think Jerry's been kind of petty about, the complaining about Winning Time, so laugh it off. Everybody knows it's just a television show, man. But I have a great deal of respect for Jerry's acumen and his judgment of players and so forth. And, we all know the Kobe stories with Jerry picking him, and making that gamble and so forth. And I love guys that are willing to really go out on a limb like that and make the big move, to have a vision, and having somebody visionary is something that the Lakers have missed in a long time. And I'm very hopeful that Darvin Ham will fill that role on the Lakers.
We'll see what happens indeed, but it is Legacy, the true story of the LA Lakers. Go ahead and catch it today on Hulu. The first 2 episodes are now available. As each episode drops, we'll go ahead and talk about it here on the show. I will have my opinions. Hopefully Joe, LakerTom, and Sean will have their opinions as well in the coming weeks, but we'll catch it again on Hulu. But everyone out there, we truly appreciate you stopping by. The chat has been tremendous once again. Big shout out to everyone that's part of the chat already. Sovereign with the awesome N7 Mass Effect. Love Mass Effect. You see that behind me right there for you. Jerry has been very petty, but we'll always love him here in LA. Once a Laker, always a Laker, especially him as one of the greatest Lakers ever, indeed. Absolutely, indeed. But, guys, I want to go ahead. Yes, he is the logo, indeed. Even though, much to his chagrin, he doesn't even like being the logo, but that's just the kind of man he is. Don't ask about that. That's something I don't want to get because
I'll ask him.
Yeah, you would ask him. That's true. You would ask him indeed. But everyone out there, thanks so much for being a part of today's show. Once again, LeBron signs a 2-year, $97.1 million extension. Depending on if the salary cap increases, it could increase to $111 million with a 15% trade kicker on it as well and an option in the final year. So he is right now committed to the Los Angeles Lakers, and hopefully that will continue to happen and continue to be a great part of the Lakers scene for the incoming years. We'll hopefully be able to provide a team around him that will go ahead and compete again for a world championship, and we'll see what happens there. But if you have comments, questions, please go ahead, hit us up at Lakers Fast Break on Twitter. Also as well, go ahead and shout outs to us, LakersFastBreak@yahoo.com, or Facebook. You can go ahead and like our page, share any comments you want right there for you, or YouTube, we go ahead and follow up on that as well. And of course, you can go ahead and catch us anytime you want on your podcast outlet. Sovereign, Emmy fans unite, and 7 indeed. Take it easy, guys. Go Lakers. Go Lakers indeed. Once again, it is Ox1947. You can catch him today right there at LakersBall.com with LakerTom, who is the number one Lakers blogger. I'm not lying. I actually did. I was looking up Lakers blog sites the other day, and I noticed there's a lot of them that are now no longer available and no longer operational. But it came down to a listing of bloggers right there for you and the number that they do. And the number one is LakerTom, number one blogger on the Lakers. So go ahead and catch him today at Lakerholics.com. There's right there for you. There's Joe Soro giving the pink indeed. Yeah, which finger he's?
Joe gave me a finger. Whoa!
Yeah, he's giving him the finger. He's giving the finger. And don't forget Sean Grice.
A nice compliment on the great do, man. I mean, really.
Yes. Well, and
also I hit it. I'm trying to be good.
Okay. Fair.
But I used all 5.
But Sean Grice, I want to go ahead and make sure to let everybody know that Sean Grice, even though he had some internet issues today, we'll go ahead and keep on trying. In fact, he sounded great. I'm going to go ahead and drop a conversation in the coming days that we had on Facebook, which was perfect, which was awesome. And I'll go ahead and make sure we can hopefully duplicate that again in the coming weeks as well. But everyone out there, we truly appreciate everyone out there as far as their comments in the chat. Also, your thoughts, your opinions, and of course, taking the time out of your day to going ahead and catching us here at the Lakers Fast Break. We'll be back on Sunday. As far as for everyone that's watching us live, we'll be back on Sunday. We've moved our Thursday show for LeBron to go ahead and be on Wednesday, just for LeBron, right there. So we'll go ahead and drop a new episode as far as live on YouTube and Twitch on Sundays. So go ahead and check us out there, plus also as well on Facebook. And like I said, I'm going to go ahead and drop for the audio outlets a upcoming episode of me and Sean Grice here, probably on Friday. I'll drop that on Friday indeed. So for everyone out there, LakerTom, Joe Soro, Sean Grice, thank you so much for watching and listening. It's been the Lakers Fast Break Podcast. And of course, we hope you and yourselves out there and everyone out there are really happy about LeBron's new extension, which we'll keep on talking about because there's not a whole lot else to talk about. But we'll keep finding stuff. And we'll keep bringing it to you right here at the Lakers Fast